Today I'll share with you a story of a 6-year-old prodigious girl. The movie is titled Gifted, and it was released in 2017. In your life, what do you find more valuable? Being successful or enjoying life beautifully? The narrative of this movie will eloquently help you understand this answer. So without wasting any more time, let's get into the main storyline of the movie. In a little house in Florida, resides a man named Frank, with his only daughter, Mary, and today marks a special day as Mary is about to attend her first day of school. So, Frank had prepared Mary's lunch, but Mary is not entirely thrilled about going to school. In response, Frank tells Mary, "You go to school, it was your mom's final wish." In a short while, the school bus arrives, and Mary reluctantly steps onto it. Afterwards, a respectable lady comes to Frank's house. This respectable lady is Frank's landlady. She tells Frank, sending Mary to school doesn't seem appropriate at all. Frank says, it was her mom's wish. She wanted Mary to lead a normal life like other kids, but despite Mary growing up considerably, but she doesn't have any friends. The lady says, I fear a lot for Mary. May we not lose her for any reason. You will gradually understand why they are afraid of losing Mary. Saying these words, the respectable lady left from there. On the flip side, Mary's school scene unfolds. The teacher is quizzing the children, asking, what 2 plus 2 is. The kids eagerly raise their hands and respond, 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. But Mary shows no interest in these matters. Then the teacher asks again, what is 3 plus 3? This time, Mary a bit agitated, she says, why you are wasting time asking such easy questions? Everyone knows 3 plus 3 equals 6. The teacher then instructs Mary to stand up. She tells Mary, if these questions seem easy to you, then tell me what 15 plus 17 is. Mary promptly answers, 32. It wasn't a difficult task for her at all. The teacher then poses an even more challenging question. She asks Mary, what is 57 plus 135? Without a second thought, Mary confidently responds, 192. The teacher is somewhat astonished this time. And now, she throws a final question, one she herself doesn't know the answer to. She asks Mary to calculate 57 multiplied by 135. After a moment of contemplation, Mary confidently answers, says, 7695. The teacher uses a calculator to verify that Mary's answer is indeed correct. Even Mary adds, the square root of 7,695 is 87.7, a computation that seems almost unattainable for an average person without the aid of a calculator. Upon hearing this, the teacher is utterly amazed. After a short while, the headmistress visits Mary's class. Mary requests the headmistress not to study in this school due to Frank's financial issues. Shortly after, Frank arrives at the school. He takes Mary out of school. At that moment, Mary's class teacher rushes to Frank. She informs him that Mary is not a normal child. She is a prodigy. She is a gift. She explains that Mary effortlessly solves complex mathematical problems. Frank says, it's not that impressive, it's just a trick, which I taught her. With these words, Frank departs from there. He then takes Mary to the seashore to spend some time. However, Frank was visibly upset with Mary because she had behaved poorly with the teachers at school today. Mary says sorry to Frank. Frank then instructs Mary, you won't talk about maths in school anymore. Not a word, not even an answer. On the flip side, Mary's class teacher decides to search for information about Frank's claimed tricks on Google. However, there seems to be no information on mathematical tricks. She then searches for Francis Adler mathematician, but she finds no relevant results. Frustrated, she decides to search for another name that Frank mentioned, Diane Adler. Although the search doesn't reveal any mathematical tricks, it does uncover an interesting twist. Diane Adler was a brilliant mathematician. Diane Adler was indeed a renowned mathematician who was a child prodigy, but tragically she committed suicide. She had a 6-month-old daughter who was left in the care of her brother Frank. It's mean, Frank is not Mary's father, he is Mary's uncle, and he has been taking care of Mary since her early childhood. The next day, the class teacher meets Frank and hears all of Mary's stories directly from him. 6 years ago, Mary's mom Diane came to see Frank one day. She told Frank that she needed to talk to him about something very important, but Frank was busy at that moment, so Frank left quickly. When he returned home, he discovered that her sister had committed suicide. Frank continues to share more stories with the teacher. He continues, Mary's father left Diane when she was pregnant. Our mom wished for Diane to adhere to her instructions. She used to do this with my sister since childhood, but my sister chose not to align every aspect of her life with our mom's wishes. Consequently, when my sister was pregnant, my mom ousted her from our residence. The next day, the school's principal summons Frank to discuss Mary's talents. Frank is already aware of Mary's capabilities. He doesn't divulge much about Mary's talents to the principal. The principal offers to enroll Mary in a better school and even arrange a scholarship for her. But Frank remains unwilling to agree to anything. He ignores the principal and walks away, distancing himself from the conversation. When Frank and Mary return home, they notice a dignified lady standing in front of their house. Mary inquires to Frank, "Who is she?" Frank replies, "She is my mom, and your granny." This is the first time Mary's granny has come to see her, because the school principal has informed her everything about Mary, describing her as a genius child. Mary's granny has brought a laptop for her and some math books. Mary looks at the books and says, "I've read these books a long time ago." At that moment, Mary shares some mathematical topics with her granny that amazes her. She can understand that Mary is a super genius girl not only compared to her mom, but also in general. Then, Frank changes the topic and turns the conversation in another direction. Frank's mom tells him, "I want my granddaughter to be with me. I want to enroll her in a better school." But Frank refuses, saying, "No need for that. Mary will grow up just like normal kids." Arguments continue between the son and mom. Frank's mom says, "My granddaughter will stay with me, and if I have to seek legal help for that, I will." Frank responds, "Do whatever you want, but what you've done with my sister, I won't allow that with my niece." Frank's mom remarks, "Had your sister followed my advice, she could have won the Nobel Prize." Frank responds, "You've always pursued success vigorously, but my sister sought some tranquility." Frank's mom declares, "See you in court." After saying this, she departs from there. In the subsequent scene, Frank's mom encounters him at the courthouse. The judge remarks, "This is your family matter. It would be best if you can resolve this matter among yourselves." George has granted Mary's granny regular visits to Mary, but the legal proceedings are ongoing. The court will have the final say on where Mary will ultimately reside. Frank loves to his niece dearly. He consistently desires for Mary to have a typical life. She will growing up like other children. He hopes that what happened with his sister should not occur with his niece. After that, one day Frank receives a letter. This letter was a court order stating that Mary's granny would keep Mary with her for 2 days. Since it was a court order, there was no option to disobey it. Next day Mary's granny comes, and she takes Mary with her. Mary's granny lives in Boston. As she was quite wealthy, Mary enjoyed spending time with her. The next day, Mary's granny takes her to a university. Mary's granny tells her, "Your mom was working on a math problem at this university called Navier-Stokes. There are 7 such math problems in the world, and only one has been solved. The person whose picture you can see on the wall, his name Grigory Perelman. He was the only one who managed to solve one problem. He proved the Poincaré conjecture. If your mom had been able to solve that math problem, her picture would be on this wall today." Mary then says, "Maybe I'll have my picture up here someday." Upon hearing this, Mary's nanny says to her, "If you really desire it, you can have your picture there. I can help you. It takes focus and hard work, but if you succeed, your name live forever." She then took Mary to a large classroom, where there was also a professor. On the blackboard, there was a complex exponent. The professor asked Mary if she could solve the equation. Mary stared at the blackboard for a long time. After a while, she replied, "I can't do it." At that moment, the professor looked somewhat disapprovingly at Mary's nanny. Mary's nanny is visibly upset, and she took Mary and get out from the classroom. Mary asked her nanny, "Are you angry with me?" Her nanny replied, "I'm not angry with you. I'm angry with that professor. How can a little girl like you solve such a difficult equation? I got upset with that professor." Mary then told her nanny that the professor said the exponent was wrong. He forgot the negative sign. From there, things went downhill and the problem became unsolvable. Mary says, "Maybe this school isn't as great as you think." Hearing this, Mary's nanny was very surprised. She took Mary back to the professor and insisted that Mary was right. The professor checked and realized that Mary was correct. There was indeed an error in the exponent. Mary corrected the exponent and solved the entire equation. The professor asks Mary, "Why didn't you mention this mistake earlier?" Mary responds, "My uncle taught me not to point out mistakes of elders. It causes them distress." Mary's grandmother and the professor understand that Mary is indeed more of a genius than even her mother. Then the scene returns to the court. Today is another day of hearings. Frank, Mary's uncle, and even Mary's father are present in court. Mary's grandmother informs George that Frank's financial situation is not good. Even now, he has lost his job. He won't be able to take proper care of Mary, and Mary's promising future is also uncertain. Frank tells the court that having been able to care Mary well for all these years, I will be able to do the rest of her life. I don't want Mary to have the same fate as her mom. Actually, Frank wants that Mary's fate not to be pressured with the understanding of success. But Mary's father wants Mary to stay with her granny. George can understand that Mary's father has been brought to court by Mary's granny. However, the court is displeased to hear about Mary's father. This is because the father, who has not searched for his daughter since her birth, he has no right to be concerned about her now. Another court hearing date is scheduled. Everything was in favor of Frank, not just financially. Frank feared that, for a small amount of money, he might lose his niece. Frank's mom could understand that. Everything was gradually going in favor of Frank. In the next scene, Frank's lawyer comes to Frank and says, "Your mother's lawyer called me. They don't want Mary to be with your mother or with you. They want Mary to be with a family that is very stable financially, a family that can take good care of Mary." But Frank is not willing to give custody of his niece to anyone. Frank's lawyer tries to convince him, saying, "This is a very good idea. Mary will now be with another family. And when she turns 12, she can tell the court that she wants to be with you. I found a family very close by. It will only take you 10 minutes to go from here." But Frank is still not okay with this. The lawyer then tells Frank, "The judge will be in court the day of the next hearing. I know him very well. He will definitely give more importance to the financial situation. And definitely he will give custody of Mary to your mother." Frank now takes a moment to ponder. Finally, he agrees to meet with that family. The next day, Frank visits the family that will take custody of Mary. After some conversation, Frank finds the family appealing. He asks the couple if Mary can bring her beloved cat with her. The couple happily agrees. The following day, following the court's instructions, Frank brings Mary to that house. When Mary learns that she has to stay in this house from now on, she becomes very upset with her uncle. She tells her uncle, "You promised that nothing in this world could separate us, and you assured my mom too." Frank has nothing to say or do today. He is silent. Today is the day to bid farewell to Mary. Frank leaves the house, and Mary cries loudly from behind the door. But Frank doesn't turn back even once. He sits in his car, and he is sobbing intensely. The next day, Frank goes to the house again to meet Mary. But the person from the house informs, "Mary doesn't want to meet you. She has strong resentment towards you. I hope you understand." After hearing this, Frank silently hands over the gift he bought for Mary to the person, and he leaves quietly from there. Several days pass in this manner. One day, Mary's teacher notices on the bulletin board an advertisement offering Mary's cat for adoption. Knowing that this cat belongs to Mary, the teacher takes a picture of the notice and sends it to Frank. As soon as Frank sees the photo, he goes to the address mentioned in the advertisement. Upon inquiring, he finds out that a respectable lady has brought the cat here. But she doesn't provide any details about her. Just she said, it was an allergy issue. Upon hearing this, Frank realizes that his mother has left the cat here because she is allergic to cat. Along with that, Frank realizes that his mother has betrayed him. After that, Frank comes to the house where Mary was placed for custody. When Frank enters the house, he sees several people gathered around Mary, conducting research on maths. At that moment, Frank hands over a file to her mother and he says, "You should read this." He then tells Mary to come with him. But Mary refuses because she harbors a lot of resentment towards Frank. Mary runs away from there, and Frank comes out of the house, chasing after Mary and catches her. Mary had intense pride over her uncle. She told her uncle, "You haven't kept your word, I will never come back to you." He firmly holds Mary. He said to Mary, "I am sorry. I made a mistake." Mary is crying a lot. Frank tells her, "Your cat is waiting for you at home." Frank then takes Mary back into the house. Frank's mother asks him, "What is written here?" Frank informs his mother that Diane had solved that famous problem of math before her death. "Diane instructed me very clearly to publish it after death." At that moment, Frank's mother tells him, "It's been 6 years since her death, so why hasn't it been published yet?" Frank then informs his mother, "It wasn't her death, she was talking about you. She had asked me to publish it after your death. You have only manipulated her beautiful childhood for success. You have ruined her life. That's why she never wanted you to witness the success you've always desired to see." Upon learning about this, Frank's mother undergoes immense sorrow, and she continues to weep bitterly. This is because she has come to understand the gravity of her mistake much too late. It was her actions that compelled her daughter to take her own life. Afterward, many days pass. Mary is now staying with Frank. Like all other normal children, she is growing up. Mary now has many friends, something her mother never had. Mary is enjoying her childhood, and through this, the movie concludes. In our society, there is no shortage of guardians like Mary's grandmother, those who thrust young children into a competitive race right from the commencement of their schooling. The emphasis is on securing the top spot in class. But only one can claim the coveted first position. It is an unattainable goal for everyone. Then, are the remaining children not intelligent? Success has no definitive conclusion, and pursuing it is not inherently negative. There is no end to success, and running behind this success is not a bad thing. Success, a pursuit that propels us forward, is undeniably significant. It's not merely about achieving goals but also relishing the journey. If you cannot enjoy your life in pursuit of this mirage, then what is the gain? In our quest for success, let's not lose sight of life's joys. Personally, I believe I am content. The ability to express this sentiment sincerely is the essence of success. Your perspective may differ, so please feel free to share your opinion in the comments.